Hello, gentlemen, barbarians, savages. The Rooster here. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the wage gap. The wage gap is something that we've been hearing about for 40 years. You have people going on TV, picking up their Oscars and saying, hey, we need to close that wage gap. Women only make, what do we say, 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes. Well, you know, I'm really sick of this. It's been diffused, refuted, destroyed, shot down in so many ways. But hopefully this video is going to finally put it to rest. And the next time that you run into someone that says, oh my God, I only make 77 cents, I'm a little victim, you can point them to this video, and they will, at the end of the video, they will be sitting there with their mouth open going, oh crap. People actually research this stuff, and people that know how to do math figured it out, and there really is no wage gap. If you get a chance, one of the best books that's out there, there's a guy named Dr. Warren Farrell, and he wrote a book called Why Men Make More. And it's an awesome book. It's fabulous. Can't promote it enough. It's a couple years old now, but it's a great book, and it explains everything that I'm going to try to do in this condensed video. He goes into great detail on it, but basically the wage gap does not exist, and let me tell you why. First off, it's against the law. There is something called the Equal Pay Act of 1963. And it says that nobody that's doing the same job in the same position can be paid more or less based on race or sex. Okay? So it is completely against the law and has been for over 50 years. This came out before the Equal Rights Act. This came out in 1963. Okay? It's been around. And there's exactly zero lawsuits every year at this point about equal pay. It just doesn't happen. It can't happen. It's against the law. The other thing about it from an economic standpoint, if you think about it from a business owner, you know, I have Jimmy over here and I have Janie over here, and if women actually make 77 cents for every dollar, why are there any men employed at all? I mean, male chauvinist pigs, they love their chauvinism, but there's something that male chauvinist pig business owners love more than chauvinism, and that's money. And if I can get away with paying 77 cents to do the same job, why don't I hire all women? Why are there any men at all that have any jobs anywhere? It's economically impossible in a free market. You're going to hire, and your entire workforce is going to be women if you can hire them for 77 cents on the dollar. So those two things: one, there's a law against it, and two, we have a free market capitalist economy. Labor is a commodity, folks. There is free flow of labor. You can quit and people can hire you, and you can be fired for any millions of reasons. There's free flow. So there's no possible way that women are getting paid 77 cents for the dollar. Now, let me explain where the misunderstanding comes in. And the feminists love this, because what is tallied by the government is total earnings. Now, The numbers that they use to dispute the wage gap are not wages. They're total earnings. Okay? And here's the truth that nobody wants to talk about. Men work harder than women. Oh my God, I said it. It's a terrible thing, but guess what? It's true. On average, over lifetime total earnings, men make more than women. Why? Because men work harder than women. On an average year, men's total earnings are higher than women. Why? Because men work harder than women. But if you take the wages, which is earnings by hour, that is when you actually see the wage gap completely goes to zero. Okay? So how can that be? Well, I have this person working for $8 an hour, and I have this person working $8 an hour. I have Jimmy and Janie. Okay, Jimmy, you're both doing the exact same job. You're both getting paid exactly the same. Hey, I need someone to work overtime tonight. Oh, I can't do that. I got the kids. I have to pick them up at 5 o'clock. I have to be home, cook dinner for the kids and take care of that. That's Janie. Okay? Jimmy says, oh, yeah, you know what? I'll suck it up. I'll work overtime tonight. How many hours do you need? Well, we need you to work a double till 11 o'clock. Okay. Okay, he does that a couple times a week over the whole year. Guess what? At the end of the year, Jimmy has made a hell of a lot more than Janie did. Because Janie made a choice. She was given an opportunity, and she made a choice to not get paid. Jimmy made a choice to get paid. Men make choices to work harder than women on average. That's why they make more. As I said, they're both doing the exact same job, and they're both getting the same wage. They're both getting $8 an hour. But what the feminists look at is at the end of the year, how come Jimmy made $50,000 that year and Janie only made $40,000? Well, I just told you why. Janie made choices, and she made choices to not work. Jimmy made choices to work. Also, the other thing that the feminists, third wave feminists don't look at is they don't separate out for the type of occupation. They don't separate out for position. They don't separate out for education. They don't separate out for tenure. You know, you can have one professor who's tenured and another professor who's not tenured, or teacher or whatever. The tenured professor and the untenured professor may be teaching the exact same class, but the tenured professor is going to make a lot more. And generally, that's a man because they go for the tenure. So it's a misunderstanding of earnings and wages. They use earnings and then they tell you that there's a wage gap. But if you break it down to the wage, you will find out that there is absolutely no gap whatsoever. And honestly, under the age of 30, if you take the average of men and women under the age of 30, women actually make more. They make 7% more. Okay? What other choices do women make besides overtime and stuff like that? They make choices not to go into the STEM fields, which are higher pay. Okay? STEM fields are science, technology, engineering, and math. You know, physics, computer science. And here's the thing. Cornell did a study in 2012 and said that the STEM field needs women to the point where they have a 2-to-1 advantage over men in getting into those fields, and they don't do it because there are so few women in those fields that they've actually the feminists have created ways to help them get in there, quotas and stuff like that, and they still don't go into those fields. And believe me, as an engineer, I can remember sitting in my mechanical engineering classes and looking around, and it's just like they say on The Big Bang Theory, it's a freaking wasteland. I think I knew 3 women that took any engineering classes the whole time I was in college. So this was true 20 years ago. I can't imagine what it's like now. The unpopular truth is that women don't work as hard as men, and women don't go into these fields that require hard work. They want to go and do gender sciences and sociology and psychology and veterinary medicine. They don't want to go into the hardcore math. Some of the other things that women don't usually get: shift bonuses. Okay, if you've ever worked shift work in your life, there's a 7% bonus for working afternoons, and there's an 11% bonus for working midnights. Primarily, 90% of those shifts are worked by men because women want to work. What shift do all women want to work? They want to work 7 to 3 so they can drop their kids off at school, pick their kids up after school. Choices. They make choices. Those choices are to make less money. Men make choices. Oh, I'll work afternoons. Oh, I got 11% bonus to work midnights. All right, I'll get up at 11 and work till 7 in the morning. No problem. What else? Women take longer holidays. Women take longer vacations, much longer vacations than men. And then the fundamental thing and the fundamental reason that everyone points to, and this is still true today, the average woman, 43% of women take years out of their work life, up to 10 years out of their work life, to have children. That is women's dream. That's not men's dream. And also, even if men want to have a family, get married, and have kids, they can't. That's not their biological imperative, and they don't have a uterus. So they just don't leave. You can't punish a guy because he doesn't have a uterus, and he stays in the workforce between 25 and 35, gets promoted 2 times. He gets promoted when he's 28, and he gets promoted again when he's 32, and then they're both, Jimmy and Janie are now 35 years old, and, well, why is Jimmy, we used to have the same job, well, why is Jimmy the assistant shift manager, and I'm still working down here on the plant floor? Well, sweetheart, cupcake, you took 10 years out. You left the plant for 10 years, and you came back. Did you think that you were going to come back and be, the shift manager when you came back after 10 years? Well, me and Jimmy used to do the same job. Yeah, you used to do the same job, but you took 10 years off the plant. And by the way, she didn't get paid for those 10 years, so those years are zeros. So when you look at lifetime earnings, Jimmy's got promotions where he's making $55,000 and then he's making $65,000 a year over those 10 years, and she's making zeros. Okay? So that also adds to the cumulative of the lifetime earnings average. Okay? What else can we talk about? Let's see. The mandatory pay gap goes to 0. An increasing number of women work part-time. Okay? Much more women work part-time than full-time. If you work part-time over the year, there's no way you can make as much money as someone who works full-time. Again, I'm going to say it. Men work harder than women. Okay? Overtime. 1 in 5 men work overtime consistently. 20% of men in the workforce consistently work overtime. The number of women that work overtime is negligible. Negligible. It's less than 1%. Now, so when we talk about this, before I said, women are given all these incentives to go into the STEM programs in college. Even though that is when they get to the workforce now, you would think men and women, they equally work 40-hour weeks, right? And I just talked about how women generally work more part-time. Men, a majority of men that can't get overtime, 1 in 5 work overtime. A lot of companies don't offer overtime. Here's something that I've uncovered that a lot of people don't talk about. Another additional 10% of men, 15% of men work 2 jobs. So they work a full-time job, and then they have another part-time job. Okay? Men, this is a fact that you need to get into your head. Men are twice as likely as women to work over 40 hours a week. Twice as likely as a woman to work over 40 hours a week. I'm going to say it again. Men work harder than women. Men work harder than women. That's why we get paid more. Okay? Now we have the section which I like to call the 3 Ds. And the 3 Ds consist of this: dangerous, demanding, and distance. Think of those 3 things. Men exclusively work in the 3D category. Not exclusively, but it's like 95%. Dangerous jobs. Okay? Men are the majority of underwater welders, big, fishing, which is very dangerous, construction. Men are out there on the pole, their pole, which isn't the stripper pole, but the telephone pole, in the winter, putting the power back on for you, up in the bucket, when it's freezing freaking cold, and there's no power, and you're sitting in your house whining, "Why don't I have any electricity so I can watch Game of Thrones?" There's some dude that's out there that's got 50 freaking poles covered with ice that he's got to get power turned on to, and it's not a woman. Okay? There's a guy that's out there in Arizona in 120 degree heat on the freaking pole, putting power back on, putting telephone lines back on, making sure your cable comes in, and it's not a woman. It's a guy. Okay? Women don't work heights. They don't work anything that's dangerous. Now, here's a statistic that I want you to sink into your head. The next time someone says, "There's no way, I work just as hard as a man." Okay, sure you do. Here's the stat that proves it. 97% of work deaths, people that die in the workplace, 90% of those people are men. 3% of women die at work, probably because they tripped over a cord, their computer cord at the office, and fell down and broke their neck. But the other 97% are men who are out in the weather, diving underground, being a police diver in the ice, finding guns and dead bodies at the bottom of the freaking lake in the middle of the winter. Freezing their ass off or sweating their ass off on a freaking roof, humping shingles all freaking day. So let's talk about the second part, demanding jobs. And I touched on this a little bit before. Any job that's demanding, any job that isn't 7 to 3, go home, I'm done, turn my brain off, work's over, now I'm home with my kids. Any job that requires any kind of demands, that requires overtime, that requires over and above the call of duty, that requires anything dangerous, women don't do demanding jobs. Women don't seek out managerial jobs as much as men because they don't want the stress. They don't want to deal with people. They don't want to deal with other women that are whining, my car didn't start today, I can't come in. So supervisory roles, they complain, why aren't more women in supervisory roles? Why don't more women apply for supervisory roles? They make the choice not to work. They make the choice to keep the job on the plant floor. I want to be a supervisor. I don't want to deal with the stress. Okay? And then distance. That's the last one. Okay? Primarily, men drive twice as far to work as women. So a man will drive 100 miles. I knew a guy that lived in Gaylord, Michigan. He worked at a plant in Detroit, Michigan. Okay? That's a 4-hour drive. He did this for 20 years. He got an apartment down in Detroit, and on Sunday night he drove 4 hours down to his apartment, stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment Monday through Friday, while his wife was up in Gaylord living the fat, dumb, and happy life, eating bonbons and watching cartoons on TV. And he's living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and she's enjoying all of the great stuff 5 days a week up in the beautiful country in Gaylord, and he's working his ass off down at plant. And then Friday night he drove 4 hours back up to Gaylord and got to spend his weekend up in Gaylord doing his fishing or hunting or whatever he wanted to do. Women aren't going to do that. Women don't do that. They don't go distances. Okay? The majority of men, consultants and stuff like that, businessmen on flights that are traveling from LA and taking the red eye to New York to go to a meeting, to do this or to do that. The majority of truck drivers that are driving 11 hours a day, working 14 hours a day, leaving home for 2 weeks at a time to drive a truck back and forth from Oregon to Arizona 5 times a week, and then they get home every 2 weeks for a Saturday and a Sunday, and then on Monday they're back in the truck. Women don't do that. Majority of women don't do that. Okay, willingness to commute. That's pretty much it. That's the points that I've made. And the general point is this, and it is an unpopular truth that people, feminists primarily, don't want you to believe, but it is the truth. And that is this: men work harder than women. That's why we make more. So when you talk to some feminist who's jumping around in her panties saying 77 cents on the dollar, you tell them it's because the choices that you make, that's why you make 77 cents. If you want to make a dollar like a man makes a dollar, you have to make the choices like a man makes. You have to make choices in your life to work and put work over and above the other things in your life, like watching cartoons and eating bonbons or spending time with your kids. And the problem is women don't want to do that, and that's fine that you don't want to do that. Most men don't care. We don't want you in the workplace anyways because you cause a lot of problems for us. But don't bitch about it after you've made the choice. You make the weather and then bitch that it's raining. I don't understand it, and I've never understood it. And that's why I get loud and excitable about this shit, because it really pisses me off. So I always have problem solution. And here is the solution. There is a solution to the wage gap. If you're a man, like a lot of feminist problems come down to the same solution. Hold women accountable. When you're in charge of women, make them feel it. Whenever you are a supervisor, whenever you are a manager and you have women working for you, do not give in to their manipulations. Make them feel it. If they want time off, make them feel it. Don't give them the day off with pay. Make them feel it. If they are trying to juggle 3 kids and work at Subway at the same time, and you're a manager and the shit's not getting done at work because of her kids, make her feel it. Take her in the room and talk to her and say, listen, you got a job here. You got to do this. You can't be leaving at 4:30 every day, a half an hour before your shift's over, because you're putting the burden on everybody else. Hold them accountable, because if there's one thing that you know about women, they will always try to weasel out, sneak around the rules, and manipulate you in such a way that you feel guilty or shamed about their choices. You don't have to feel guilty about women's choices. If she makes choices to not maintenance her car or her truck, and she can't get to work because she's got a dead battery, that's not your problem. I mean, it is your problem because you got to fill the shift with someone else, but you got to make her feel it. Don't let women slide. Hold them accountable. Okay, so that's all I have. Those are your problems. Those are your solutions. Okay, I'll do a quick summary. The wage gap is primarily based on earnings. When you break it down to the exact wages, there is no wage gap whatsoever. People are exactly the same. Women's choices are what cause them to earn less over a lifetime, even over a year, even over a week. The unpopular truth is that men work harder than women, and dangerous, demanding, and distant jobs, women don't do it. They don't take those jobs. So that's why they make less. Okay? If you don't believe what I'm saying is true, please fill out in the comments. If you want to dissent, if you want to rant against me, if you want to talk about your one-off where you have a wife that's worked her whole life and you've been in a wheelchair and she takes care of you, feel free. I want to hear about it. But that's all I have. And as always, take it easy.